Hello everybody, my name is Walter and today I want to show you my new Dissector Mark II Datapack, which is loosely based on an old block counter I showed you several years ago. A lot has changed in the intermediate time and my contraptions have actually started to outgrow my old design, so I took this as an opportunity to make a Datapack based complete redesign with an interactive chat menu while also keeping an eye on ease of customization. With a 48-meter cube, this Dissector Mark II will count all the blocks, entities, and items within containers that it has been set to. The search for blocks, entities, and items can be easily customized using an Excel file found within the Datapack itself. A chat-based report is automatically generated after a measurement, and a book-based one can be ordered by a simple click for later safekeeping. The tutorial will have two parts. First, I want to show you how to import and use the Datapack, and then I will show you how you can easily customize the Datapack using the Excel file. And with that, let's actually get started. Now, before you can actually use the Datapack, you first need to import it into Minecraft. For that, first use the link in the description of this video to download the zip file which contains the Datapack. Then you need to import it into your save game. For that, the simplest way is to go to the Select World menu, select the world where you want to use the Datapack, then click on the Edit button, then the Open World folder button. And now the Explorer should open into your save game. And here you need to go into the subfolder Datapacks, and that's where you need to copy in the zip file you just downloaded. Now the last step basically is unzipping this. So right click, extract all, extract, and then you can delete the zip file again because now we have a folder with the same name, which should directly contain a data subfolder, then a changelog to files named pack, and a Excel file which is later on used to customize this Datapack, but more about this a bit later in this video. With that, the import is done, which means now you can actually use the Datapack inside of your world. Once you have imported the Datapack, the moment you open the world, you will see this load in message appearing. This load in message has two buttons. The first allows you to place a new dissector if you're not too close to an already existing one. And the second allows you to remove the nearest dissector within 10 blocks, which I'll do for now. So you can see now the dissector has disappeared and left behind an iron block. Now this iron block is used to mark the position of that analyzer in case you accidentally deleted it or just placed it in the wrong orientation. Now, if you want to place an analyzer, you'll need the message. Now I already reset the chat window, or if you have too much chatter in your chat, you might no longer have this message. To get it back, there are three ways. First is leaving and re-entering the world. The second is using the reload command, which will also reload all other data packs, which might be something you might not want. And the third option is using the function command. Then search for the function dissector, and here you need to go all the way down and then a bit up to the UI load in. And that's again the same message. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the placement. So basically the block you're standing on, the upper corner of that, in the diagonal direction you're roughly looking, defines the lower corner of the 48 by 48 by 48 cuboid area that gets analyzed later on, and goes from this corner in the diagonal direction you're looking. So let's place a dissector here. And you can see it did two things. It placed a structure block and an armor stand. The structure block nicely marks the area that gets analyzed, and it also allows you with a single button click to save whatever is inside of the structure for later reuse if you want. The armor stand itself is the interaction node or point for this datapack. So if you get within 2 blocks, you will get this main menu message. And within 10 blocks of this, you will be able to actually access or use those commands that are embedded. This is just to make sure that you don't accidentally do interact with an armor stand that is all the way over there or whatever. Now let's quickly go through the functionality. I'll start with creating a platform. By the way, if you don't need the platform at some point anymore, you can easily remove it again. Now this platform has two nice functionalities. The first is it minimizes lava and water spillage due to the moat around it. And secondly, if you're working with Redstone components, it's very easy to forget the lowest layer of a Redstone contraption, if it's only blocks at least. And in that instance, without the platform, those would pop off as items and would not be counted later on, which is really annoying. With the platform, this is not really an issue. Second functionality you should look at is the toggles menu. Now, this is a menu that allows you to toggle for each block type and entity type, whether you want to count them or count them and then remove them from this cuboid area. Just click on the count or the count and destroy, and you will simply toggle back and forth. This works for all. It might jump back up or down a bit, but besides of that, you can see it works as intended. You also have some mass toggles, so you can set all to all blocks or all entities or all blocks and entities to either just count and destroy or just count. I usually have all on destroy, except sometimes the hoppers if I want to look in the contents of those. There is another mass toggle for item counting. Item counting in containers is always non-destructive, but it's really resource and lag intensive. I'm talking about several magnitudes of order here. So if you don't need it, just turn it off if you don't want to produce too much lag. This toggles menu, by the way, is multi-page if necessary. So if it's too long, you will have a previous page and next page button at the bottom appearing. Just as a side note. Anyway, with the toggles set, we could now start with a measurement, but at the moment we don't have anything in here. Now there are a few ways to get something in there. The first is just plainly building it in there. The second is using a clone command to copy it manually. And the third is using this place structure here. Basically, what you need to do is you need to get a structure block, then name the structure analyze. You don't need the Minecraft at the beginning, just analyze. The Minecraft will be added automatically by the game. And then you will need to save whatever you want to copy. How a structure block works, I explained in my Redstone basic series. Anyway, once you have saved whatever you want, you can now import it using the place structure analyze button here. And I already prepared this beforehand with my, as you can somewhat see here, 8x8 double cave door. What you can also see here is that redstone contraptions that contain observers and pistons tend to get a bit confused the moment they get imported. In those cases, usually it gets fixed by just replacing or placing it a few more times. And as you can see in this instance here, it works. There are some minor cases where it doesn't want to actually fix itself, but in most instances this works. If you want, you can give the contraption a little test run just to make sure that it's actually working properly, so you have everything in its correct place. Anyway, with that done, it's time for the measurement. Just click on the measurement button, and you get a bit of a lag spike due to items being counted. You can see it's almost 700 commands were executed for this. Without it, it would be around 700 commands in this case here. So you'll see why I say don't count items if you don't need it. Anyway, the moment you have done the counting, you get to the chat report. The chat report is a condensed report, so it will only show the entries where it actually found something. But if it's too much for one page, it will also be multi-page, so with a previous and the next page button. Anyway, you can see, okay, this contraption contains redstone components, levers, iron blocks a lot, and also some X inside of the hoppers. And if you want to go back to the main menu, just click on the button. And now you can see the main menu was extended by this line here for the reports. So you can go back to the chat report, or you can get a book report. Now the book report is pretty interesting. For one, it obviously contains the same information as the chat report, although not really condensed. At least it doesn't show the zeros where it didn't found anything. So you only need to look for numbers and not look through all of the zeros. It has 3 categories: blocks, entities, and items, and some quick steps at the top here. to get between those categories. The nice thing about this book report is that you can obviously rename it, for example, in an anvil, and then put it in a chest for safekeeping for later, which is something you can do with a chat report. The reset report button does what it implies. It sets all of the variables in the background, and you can see now this report line disappeared in the menu. One important thing, if you use the book report, first open this before you do a reset of the report, because the book only fills in all of those numbers here the moment it's opened the first time, not the moment it's given to you. And if you have already set the report, well, all of those numbers don't exist and you have an empty report. So beware of that. The last button to talk about is the clean area button. Now this does what the name implies. Basically, it removes all blocks and all entities from this area here. You might have to repeat it a few times if you have, for example, slimes or mobs in there, since well, they will drop their loot or slimes will break into smaller slimes. And that's basically all of the functionality of this data pack, which means now it's time to talk about how you can customize this data pack. Now it's time to talk about how to customize the data pack to look for different blocks, entities, and items. So for that, go to the Datapack subfolder. For this, the simplest way is go to the Select World menu, select the world with the Datapack, click the Edit, then the Open World folder button. Now in the Explorer, open the Datapacks folder, and here you should have the Datapack, and inside of this Datapack you will find this setup measurement point XLSM file. Now this is an Excel file with macros. A general warning about files with macros. Those can potentially contain viruses and can do a lot of harm on your computer. So only open those files and only activate macros if you trust the source of that file. Having said that, for this file here, you will have to trust me because otherwise you won't be able to customize this data pack. Now, open this file. And at the top, you should have this yellow band, which asks you whether you want to activate the macros, which you will have to do as I already said. By the way, don't get confused by the German at the top here. My computer is set to German, but the file itself is in English, as you can see. And with that, let's go through this file here. So we have 5 worksheets. General settings, where you can change general things. Then we have tags, where you can define your own blocks and entity type tags. Then we have blocks, entities, and items, which are just a list of what blocks, entities, and items are to be counted. But let's start at the beginning. So we have in general settings 3 things we can change. The first is the options in the color drop-down menu in those lists here. So you might remember from before, you had different colors for the different entry lines in the toggle menu, the chat report, and the book report. And this is where you can set them. And to make this easier, you have this drop-down menu here. If you want to add a new option to this drop-down menu, you can do this here easily by just adding the new color at the bottom. And then you can add a new color and then so on and so on. And the moment you have done this, those will appear in this drop-down menu here, as you can see there. So very easy, and this will avoid a lot of copy-pasting back and forth if you use custom colors. So with that said, what colors are available? Minecraft comes with those 16 predefined colors here, plus a 17th, which is reset, which is essentially the default color. But that's a bit limiting. Fortunately, you can define your own colors using a hexadecimal code. So you start with a hash, then in hexadecimal numbers, 6 digits. The first 2 are red, then green, then blue value. And all of those together form a new color. If you want a specific color, I would recommend using online tools like, for example, the JSON text generator, where you can just select a specific color and get this code, which you can simply copy paste into this line here. And with that, you have that new color available to select it here, which makes this entire thing rather nice. The second thing you can change here is how many entries per page in the toggle menu in the chat report you have, and the same for the book report. 90 and 12 are good numbers in my opinion. If the toggle menu is a bit too long for you, can obviously reduce that number. The upper limit here is 94, since you have a header and a footer, and the chat menu or the chat window only has 100 lines available. If that number becomes too big, well, you can't actually access any all options anymore. The book report, you shouldn't make this number too small because books, to my knowledge, can only have up to 50 pages. And if you make this number too small and have too many entries, this would be a bit of an issue. With that said, let's get to tags. Now, tags are a way to summarize different blocks or entities under one new name that can later on be referred to in the blocks and entity lists. The way this works is that you basically summarize everything that is inside of this tag under this new name. So instead of looking for white wool and then green wool and then blue wool and then manually adding those numbers, you can just define a tag that contains those and use that, and then you have already the summed up number or count for those different contents. That's what tags are for. Minecraft comes with a lot of predefined tags you can find in the Wikipedia, for example, listed. Let's quickly show you an example. Here, for example, we have Minecraft or hash, which is the thing that tells you this is a tag. Then Minecraft double point and leaves. This contains all of the different leaves types, for example. But you can define your own. If you define one using this Datapack, you will find the name of the new tag here. And before that name, you will have to add hash dissector _2 double point if you want to refer to this. We'll see a few examples later on. The content is basically just a list of the different blocks types or entity types in quotation marks and then separated by commas. Whether you add line breaks and spaces is up to you. I added them here so the files that are created look nice later on, but it's optional. Important is that you have the quotation marks and the commas. You will find the identifiers or the type names in the Wikipedia usually at the bottom of the corresponding pages. You can also find them if you go in your inventory or the creative inventory and have the tooltips active. That's basically what tags are for. Now, before I get further, there are 3 tags that play a role when you're counting items or when the Datapack is counting items, which are those 3 here. This tag here contains all containers that should be looked into that have at least 27 item slots. This here contains all containers that have at least 9 item slots, and those here that have at least 5 item slots. Subsequently, you have the chests, shulker boxes, and barrels in here. Here you add the dropper and the dispenser, and here you add the hopper. So you can see this tag is part of this tag, and this tag is part of this tag. When you're doing something like that, be careful that you don't create some kind of circular structure. So don't add this tag to any of those 2 tags here. Because if you have a circular structure, the tags will not work. And subsequently, the functionality will not work. Now, having said that, what is useful here is if you, for example, don't want to count the items in an ender chest, you simply remove this from this tag here, like so. And with that, basically, you are no longer counting or looking into the ender chests. Once you're done with adding all of that, you can press the Generate Files button. This will create all of the necessary files, but you will find the same button on those, so you can do it already or you can do it later when you have adjusted the lists. Next, let's talk about the lists of blocks, entities, and items. Those lists work pretty much the same, so you have 3 columns, as you can see: type ID, report name, and report color. Report color, as already explained, defines the color. This entry is colored in the toggle menu, the chat report, and the book report. As I said, the drop-down menu here can be easily adjusted in the channel settings. Type ID is what block or entity or item is to be counted. And report name is the text you will find on the left of the doppel point in the toggle menu, the chat report, and the book report. So basically just the represented name. If you leave the type ID empty, instead there is not any counting being done, but this report name is interpreted as a comment. So you can use this to add some text in your menus and reports, or you can also just add an empty line to your report. If the color is left empty, it will default to reset, just as a side note there. Having said that, a few more things. You can use straightforward blocks. You can also use block tags, either self-defined or predefined with Minecraft. And you can also use block data and NBT data. So for example, down here, I'm searching for only lava source blocks, so level 0 or waterlogged blocks. Or as another example here, I would search for a hopper that is facing down and has no items inside. So NBT and block data can be added like you would do it in, for example, a set block command. The generate files button will, as before, generate all of the necessary files. One important thing I should note here concerning the color is that you should avoid bright colors like white or yellow, because they are not really readable in the book page, which has a white background, or in the book report. So be aware of that. And with that, let's get to the entities. The ID is the same as with blocks. So you have the entity type ID, then you have the report name, and then the color again. A bit different is that you obviously don't have block data, and the NBT data you need to add a bit different, basically like you would add it in a target selector. So you have the type of the entity, which can also be an entity tag. And then you have a comma, and then you can, if you're looking for specific tags, tag equals, then if you don't want a specific tag, exclamation mark, and then the tag itself. So this one here would only look for armor stands that don't have a tag ignore. Or you could, for example, do something like this here. So this would look for an armor stand that has a tag number 1 and not a tag number 2. Or you can look for NBT data. You can even put everything together in one line, basically. So NBT data is just comma, NBT equals, and then in the fancy brackets, the actual NBT data you're looking for. So as I said, this is something you would find as part of a target selector usually. But besides of that, this works exactly the same as before. And finally, we have items. Now, items are a bit limited compared to blocks and entities, because you can't use item tags and you can't use NBT. So here you can only use straightforward item types, like for example eggs, buckets, and so on. But besides of that, this works again the same as before. Now, before I finish, one last thing I should note here, and that is that the book report is limited to 50 pages. The first page is the intro page, so 49 pages with a maximum of 12 entries per page, or 13 entries per page. You should avoid having more than about 500 entry lines, so blocks, entities, and items added together, if you want the book report to be presented properly. And the toggles will also only work for up to 1,000 entries. Beyond that, the toggles will not work properly anymore. So also be aware of that. And well, finally, as I already said in the presentation, item counting is rather resource intensive and lag intensive, so avoid adding too many items you're looking for here. Keep this number small if you want the data pack to be more efficient. And again, finally, if you are done with all of the entries, just press the Generate Files button, and with that, all of the necessary files are generated. And if you didn't make any mistakes here, adding invalid value here or adding spaces anywhere that were not expected, now you should have properly adjusted and customized Datapack. And with that, we have reached the end of this tutorial about my Dissector Mk II Datapack. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, see ya!